Welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, the number one source for news, analysis, and discussion on the Detroit Red Wings, the NHL, and all things hockey. Here are your hosts, Ryan Hanna, Brad Crisco, and Evan Lopsinger.
So this is just what late career Patrick Kane is, right? Feast or famine, your heart is pounding through your throat one way or another. It's either, oh my God, what's he doing? Oh my God, that's a turnover. Or he has a puck on a breakaway in overtime again. You know absolutely he's putting that in. We were standing in my kitchen because this is, I think, the third straight time we've had to record the podcast directly post-game in the evening. And so we're all standing in my kitchen watching the game. The puck gets on Kane's stick, and I think, Brad, you just laughed and went, yep, there it is. That's what that's what he was waiting for. You knew he was putting that in.
That game was over as soon as you heard Mick say, look at this.
Every time. Every time.
That one shift was the perfect encapsulation of what Patrick Kane is at this point in his career. Because as we were standing in your kitchen, I laughed at how two of his plays were almost incomprehensibly lazy and terrible given the circumstance. The worst, I can't even call it forecheck when he's a foot and a half away from the guy and doesn't bother going for the puck. And then just absolutely, I don't know if I want to say blows it, coast back, whatever, to give Anaheim a 3-on-2 where, by all rights, they should have scored. But then as soon as he caught Zegras puck watching, took off, Kasper hit him, scored. Just absolute chaos in was that 20 seconds? Not even?
It was a lifetime.
Guy is built to play power play in overtime at this point of his career.
What? Well, when you said, Brad, like, oh my God, he's giving him a 3-on-2. No, he's waiting for the puck to turn around.
He's actually setting himself up for a breakaway.
Yeah. He wants the Showtime moment. He knows what his nickname is.
He had enough of that game. It was ending one way or another.
We are recording this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast directly post-game, Detroit with a dramatic 5-4 overtime win over the Anaheim Ducks. It is late. This is the opposite of Evan's witching hour. Brad is, as you can tell in his voice, you are fighting off the tail end of some kind of new virus. I'm sure you're going to be patient zero, so bear with us, but we have to bring you the content. Folks, welcome to the Winged Wheel Podcast, here to talk to you about all things Detroit Red Wings hockey, the world of the NHL, and lots more. I'm one of your hosts, Ryan Hanna.
I wish it was the tail end. I'm Brad Crisco.
And I'm Evan.
On this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast, we're going to be talking about the two Detroit Red Wings games that have happened as the Hockeytown team has returned to the ice after the Four Nations face-off. Similar storylines, late game collapse, but different outcomes. One loss, one win as Detroit walks away with 3 of 4 possible points. Lots to talk about in those games. DeBrincat doing great, Raymond doing great. Ugly hit on Michael Rasmussen that wasn't called by Trevor Zegras. Plenty to talk about. We're going to get into the Four Nations face-off final, Canada, USA, and how that tournament ended. Again, dramatic fashion as Connor McDavid got his golden goal moment, so to speak. Team USA heartbroken, Dylan Larkin's words after the game and why we think he's Captain America. NHL news and more before overtime. Before all that, very quickly, 2 things. First, Winged Wheel Podcast Night at the LCA, Saturday, March 29th. Your ticket gets you not only a discounted ticket to the Detroit Red Wings game, it also gives you access to a live pre-game recording of the Winged Wheel Podcast at Little Caesars Arena, featuring not just us, the host of the podcast, but also Ken Daniels and other special guests. It also gives you a special limited edition Detroit Red Wings Winged Wheel Podcast co-branded jersey. It's a barber pole style jersey. We're not allowed to sell these. The only way you can get them is by going to the game, or sometimes we save a few back and give them out to our patrons after. So wingedwheelpodcast.com/Red Wings, or go to the link in the description to get your tickets. Secondly, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast if you want to support the show and make everything that we do possible. Bonus overtime episodes and any other bonus content that we create. Winged Wheel Podcast, Patreon exclusive Discord, and you're automatically entered into all of our giveaways. We give away 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game going directly to our Patreon supporters. So again, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. The Red Wings return to the ice, starting with a Saturday matinee against the Minnesota Wild, and it started off well. It was a 2-0 lead before Minnesota scored. They were up 2 late in the third period, and we'll talk about how that game ended in a second, but starting us off, Alex DeBrincat looked like a guy who was rested after the 2 weeks, which was a little bit different than his teammates who looked rusty. But Alex DeBrincat's been absolutely on fire. 25th goal of the season to start the Red Wings off. And overall thoughts on how the Red Wings came out to start their return to play.
I thought they were good. I'm not going to say great or heap tons of praise on them because I feel like Minnesota looked very rusty. Obviously, I think they had substantially more players in the Four Nations than the Red Wings did, which could have played into it. But yeah, a couple, I'll call it a handful of key players for the Red Wings really came out flying, and that was more than Minnesota had flying at the beginning of the game, and it gave them the early jump they needed.
The deke by Alex DeBrincat had Marc-Andre Fleury going west when DeBrincat was going east, or however you want to call it, like just deked him way out of his shoes. And it was a bang-bang play. It was Tarasenko and Copp combined, Copp working hard to finish that turnover. And DeBrincat finishes it, 25th goal of the year again. And we actually thought he scored his 26th when Dylan Larkin finished a goal where DeBrincat, we all thought, sniped it on the power play. He thought, bar down, the horn goes off, the smoke goes off, the lights go off, everyone's celebrating. And Dylan Larkin thinks he sees that it didn't go in and just kind of comes in and does that thing where you tap it in and bury it just in case. And that actually made the difference. Like there was a lengthy review and they thought about, intent to blow the whistle and when the whistle was actually blown and when the play was dead, blah, blah, blah. But thankfully, common sense prevailed. Although I do think that in a switch situation, or if this happened to the Red Wings, we'd be pretty livid. Like Wild fans were livid, and I think for good reason.
Yeah, that's one of those plays where there's no good outcome for the refs on that one, and I understand it. The horn's going off. It's probably worth noting that's a play where they don't blow the whistle. Like on a goal, usually they will not signal it with a whistle, and the horn will do that for them.
I think there is still a whistle sometimes.
There might be. You might just not notice it. But I remember hearing on the broadcast them saying, yeah, they wouldn't even blow the whistle there. So what do you mean intent to blow the whistle? What exactly are they reviewing? And yeah, if the horn's going, like straight up, Fleury stopped playing. I'm not saying he could have froze that, but he did not even attempt it because he just assumed that puck went in behind him because of the horn and didn't touch it. But at the same time, the puck wasn't in. The Red Wings didn't do anything wrong. Larkin rightly finished the play. So nobody in this scenario did anything wrong, but no matter the outcome of the review, one fan base would have legitimate right to be pissed.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think given the circumstance, this was the correct outcome. Shocking the Red Wings fan says that. But there should have been no stoppage in play. And Larkin finished the play, and there wasn't a whistle. That's a goal.
Larkin probably had the best view on the ice too to know if that did go in, right? Like it kind of hit crossbar post and came back out. So from his angle, he probably never even saw the puck go in. So he saw people celebrating, but he's like, puck's right here. It was great to see him go in there and solidify the goal just to be 100%.
And especially for the first half of the game, alongside DeBrincat, he looked like a guy who came back from playing with some of the best players in the world, and he was dialed. I do think legs went away for a lot of the Red Wings, and Larkin looks kind of, I don't want to say gas, it's not like he's slow out there, but I think in tonight's game, he took a puck to the midsection again or something. He was getting up after being a little, banged up, and you're like, yeah, that guy's played a ton of hockey recently. But he looked good to start. The Red Wings still held a 2-1 lead towards the end of the second period, and Alex DeBrincat, who, it's not officially a Gordie Howe hat trick, but you almost want to give it to him this game because he had the goal to start, he had the assist on the pretend goal, which was Larkin's, and then Brock Faber's going behind the net. Brock Faber, a defenseman, so I mean, anyone who's played defense and jumped up into the O-zone, sometimes you lose yourself a little bit and you forget that when you get on the tracks behind the net that you have to keep your head up. You don't expect to see like Brad size Alex DeBrincat
Well,
coming.
he didn't see him. That's the thing.
He did not see him. He tried to go tight around the net, and Alex DeBrincat just laid a beautiful, like, title video of Rock'em Sock'em hockey back in the day. Check right through Brock Faber's chest. And what was it? Max always says low man wins. Like that was just a gorgeous hard hit. He demolished him.
That would have hurt so bad.
Oh my God. And that's the thing, like DeBrincat plays, he's a feisty guy. Like he plays with a hard nose, much like Lucas Raymond. He doesn't back away from a scrum, and DeBrincat laying that hit is just amazing. Of course, all hell breaks loose after.
Of course, which, again, we can all whine and complain about fights and scrums and scraps after clean hits, but when it's your teammate laying there, especially a guy of Brock Faber's caliber, it's going to happen, and every player throwing the hit is always aware that's going to be a possibility. There is a chance Faber legit didn't see him because of the net and the goalie, because, again, DeBrincat's only 5'7", which is shorter than me.
Yeah,
Ryan.
yeah. And he's accomplished more than you, so.
Substantially more.
Just today.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
And I bet he's not even sick right now, like a punk.
No, he might be. He's got kids. Like, it's a strong possibility. But yeah, it's the reality of hockey. I like that he's looking for it. I like that he delivered it cleanly. I saw one person say it was a high hit. My brother in Christ, it's not physically possible for Alex DeBrincat to throw a high hit.
It's a high hit if you want to make the argument that Brock Faber hit Alex DeBrincat. Then I would agree. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense at all.
They're going to show that in the school of how to blow someone up in the current NHL. Not even back in the day. This isn't like a gray zone. Scott Stevens got away with this now, but today he'd be in jail thing. Like that is just a textbook beautiful hit. And then Minnesota jumps in because they see their star defenseman on the ice, and there's a scrum, and Copp gets in there and throws, a high hand or elbow or whatever. It's a scrum. Everyone's trying to get somebody. And it was just an unfortunate thing where his hand got stuck, his arm got wrenched, and he got hurt on the play. Didn't play the rest of that game, didn't play tonight against Anaheim. And that's actually a tough loss for Detroit because Copp was one of the players who really kind of settled into a decent performance, consistently more or less, under Todd McLellan when he came in, and he was doing well on that line too. So that was a crummy outcome to that.
Yeah, I don't know if we've had a diagnosis yet, but just the angle at which his shoulder contorted there, I winced. It's not...
I think of you every time I see a shoulder injury.
Yeah, it was not great. Hopefully it's just something like an AC joint, which isn't devastating, and there was no full dislocation or nothing snapped or cracked, but that angle didn't look good.
It was like the intensity of a full-on, it's not a line brawl, but a pretty heavy scrum after a hit. And when you see a guy just completely disengage from that and just hold his arm and look dejected and resigned, you're like, oh, that's bad. He's not even like, there's no adrenaline in the world that can power him through that. He knew something popped out, something tore, he felt something that wasn't right. And you're like, yeah, I got to get out of the situation.
It was sudden. It wasn't something that built up, which is never good.
So the third period starts. Detroit's on a power play because Minnesota got the extra there in that whole situation. Lucas Raymond snipes one, and there was like a kind of like last-ditch effort by the Wild to challenge it. It was kind of a silly challenge in my mind. I don't know if it was worthwhile or not. It failed. The goal stood. Detroit didn't do anything on the ensuing power play. And by that point, you're like, Detroit's controlling this game. Then Marc-Andre Fleury knows how much I am a detractor of his in terms of like, I don't think he's a Hall of Fame goalie. And I'm constantly arguing publicly when he's on these like all-time great lists where I'm like, no, Marc-Andre Fleury is just a good goalie, not a great one. And he put in a great performance and kept the Wild in it. But still, Detroit was leading by 2 with under 7 minutes to play. And really the last 10 or so minutes of that game was a comedy of preventable errors left, right, and center by so many Red Wings, by Patrick Kane, by Moritz Seider, who looked like he didn't have the legs on that play, whether it was a shift or the whole game. Erik Gustafsson, Tarasenko, like everyone, Larkin, everyone just made the most boneheaded mistakes where you're like, yeah, this is their first game back from 2 weeks off, and it's biting them right now. They blow the lead, 3-3, and in overtime, a bunch of other mistakes, headlined by Erik Gustafsson as Minnesota's coming out of the box. Detroit had a power play in overtime. Minnesota's coming out of the box. What does Gustafsson try to do? A blue line, cross the blue line pass, predictably gets cut off, springs Marco Rossi on the breakaway. Minnesota wins it, and Detroit blows the extra point in that game.
I'm glad you brought up the comedy of errors because I made a list.
Oh,
I had to go back and just...
Was that voice to text?
I wish. I had to actually scroll because your immediate reaction in any situation like this, emotions at a high, you're just livid. What the hell are they doing? And then you calm down after the game, you look back at it and you go, that wasn't as bad as I thought, but it was bad. So I wanted to make a list to see if I was overreacting in the moment, and I might have underreacted looking back at it. It started, and this was the worst of them all. So the Red Wings got a power play with about 8 minutes left. You're up by 2. At worst here, you can kill off 2 minutes on the clock, right? One of the Minnesota defenders breaks a stick early in the power play. So the Red Wings essentially have a 5-on, call it 3.5, because one of their players can't clear it. And Kane has the puck down low after the Red Wings had possession and just tries this cross seam pass that had no chance of getting through, that Minnesota easily deflected out of the zone, killing the best case scenario at this point. What would be the Minnesota defender with the broken stick could now get a stick and it's back to a 5-on-4. But no, Joel Eriksson Ek goes on a rush, to which the second idiotic play of the moment occurs, where Moritz Seider, instead of just winning the race, decides to just try to step in front of him.
I think it's because he had no legs. That he looked like he was completely
It had to be the only reason, because that was terrible. And then, predictably, he gets a penalty, and we all know that. Then, next shift, Red Wings take a careless penalty, and while Minnesota has the goalie pulled, obviously the Red Wings can't get it out. Boldy gets the puck in the slot. I will give Tarasenko credit for trying to block the shot, but the length at which he overcommitted and overslid was comical and naturally just led to a distraction, in which case, they scored off of it. We get near the end of the game, there's a just lazy fly by JT Compher that could have broken up a Minnesota breakout. Didn't seem like he had any motivation to engage whatsoever, which, again, it's a 1-goal game late, and you're a team pushing for the playoffs. Every play matters. And then there's just under 3 minutes left. Who does Todd McLellan throw on the ice? Patrick Kane's line. Listen, I love Patrick Kane. He objectively had an awful weekend, played like crap, and walked away with 4 points.
That's a dream right there.
Showtime, baby.
I love Patrick Kane, and I respect that hustle so much, or lack thereof, and yet still elite production. He is everything I want to be. Let's be clear on that.
Well, you're halfway there, but you wouldn't get the points.
Yeah. He is the last forward on the Detroit Red Wings that should ever be on the ice in that situation. What happens? The Red Wings get pinned forever. And I think he was even out there with DeBrincat. Again, love DeBrincat. Not a guy I'm going out there to shut it down in a 1-goal lead. Predictably, that line gets pinned. Tying goal is scored.
Can I just jump in there?
Go for it.
I think that deployment has to be about who he felt even had any kind of juice at that point in the game. I think
wasn't Patrick Kane. Did you see the rest of the game?
No, no, I know. I'm not defending it, but I'm just trying to justify what, because we haven't seen that before, right? Like Todd McLellan the Red Wings under Todd McLellan have an amazing record. I think that's their first loss after leading through 2 periods or something to that effect. Like they just hadn't, you didn't see this before. So I'm like, what changed? I
jinxed this because I said earlier in that period, I put a very mild criticism of McLellan, pointing out I don't like that Rasmussen is on the power play. But like that was one of my very, 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 very few criticisms of him. And then he does this a few minutes later. I'm like, oh, that's a big criticism. I can make the case for DeBrincat. He was having a great game and he's feisty. I can see him winning battles in that situation. Again, not my first pick, justifiable. Compher was having a garbage game and Kane was having a garbage game. You can't. You have to know the situation there. And then, again, like I said, predictably, Minnesota ties it. Then you get to overtime. Yeah, you mentioned the Gustafsson turnover. Like, again, in what reality is an NHL player attempting that pass in that situation? Like, it's just OHL teams don't do this. USHL teams, no. That is not a pass worth risking in this situation.
Especially in 3-on-3 too. Like if you're a defenseman and you're on the power play, you have the puck at the blue line, the other guy is leaving the box, you do not make any kind of movement with the puck that can turn into a turnover that cleanly. If you need to move the puck, you take a low risk play, you dump it in the corner from the blue line if you have to, but you do not make it such a clean pass across the blue line for them to intercept. And that's what they'll be defending to try to spring him. They'll cheat that way, which is what they did. And Gustafsson, there's not a lot of deception in his game. And so you could see that one, like he hadn't even made the pass. And I just said, oh no.
Yeah, 1,000%. And it's, again, worth pointing out, all that stuff I just went over was only the egregious stuff. And that was in under 12 minutes of actual gameplay.
So the Red Wings lose 4-3, and it was a missed opportunity where it looked like they were going to win in a matinee game to come back and start things hot after the Four Nations break. Now, what are the silver linings here? They still had a point. They took a point, and the night didn't go terribly for them. At the end of the day, I think technically they moved up in the playoff race.
Yeah, because Ottawa lost, so they leapfrogged him. I think Columbus was the only other team in the race that won.
And it was, so not the end of the world, but every Red Wings fan is looking back and thinking, you missed it by a tiebreaker last year. That said, if you have a terrible game and you still walk away with a point, it could be a lot worse. But these are all things that were preventable mistakes. And so you look at this and you're like, one, Todd McLellan is learning from what he could have done differently, but absolutely tearing into the team too. Two, the Red Wings are probably kicking themselves because they knew what they blew. And, whether you were in Cabo or Montreal and Boston, you needed to come back with better legs than that. And three, you have a game the next night. So it's not going to be easy for you. You're now down Andrew Copp. And so you have to be able to bounce back from it. So it was like, that was a bad loss. It was a preventable loss. It was stupid. And it happens to every team. And the Red Wings needed to bounce back. And that's what we thought they were starting to do against the Anaheim Ducks. So again, it's not like they dropped a ton of points. They still gained one, but they gave away an easy regulation win against Anaheim. Like what, 28, 30 hours later? Really tough for guys like Larkin and a little bit less, but to a large degree still Raymond, a ton of hockey lately. They come out with the literal fastest start to 3 goals for any team across the NHL this season. 5 minutes and 6 seconds to go up 3-0. And you're like, okay. Not that the start of the game was the issue for Detroit last time, but this is a team that looks way more energized. Marco Kasper opened scoring with a play that started with him back checking, and he forced a turnover, went to Larkin. Larkin brought it in, got to Raymond. Raymond with a great spinning effort to bank it off Kasper and in. That was Kasper's 10th of the year. And then there was a play on Soderblom. There was 2 penalties called in the same play, and Detroit scored rapid fire 2 power play goals. Alex DeBrincat off of a great play from Larkin where backwards through his own legs, got the shot, generated the rebound, DeBrincat buried it. And then Patrick Kane with time and space on the power play scored his 13th of the season, sniped it, and the Red Wings were up 3-0. And that was an incredible start to the game. And you're like, yeah, that's the team that was whipped into shape yesterday.
That was the team playing guilty.
Oh,
is
yeah.
what that was.
Yeah, especially in front of their own fans.
1,000%. And, because you look at that first goal, man, that was all effort by Kasper, Raymond, and Larkin. Like you could tell there was urgency to get that puck to make a play that early in a game. It's a great sign. The type of hustle you want to see all game, but especially to come out with that kind of juice. Optimism was high at that point.
The Red Wings end the first period. It was 3-1. In the second period, JT Compher made it 3 power play goals for Detroit off of a play in front. That was his 7th of the season, 3rd power play goal for the Red Wings. So 4-1 lead they had at one point. And that power play right now, like absolutely, it seems unstoppable again. There's like little moments there for a couple games where it slowed down, but in games where Detroit might have something else failing them, the power play is still just, it feels inevitable for the other team.
It's a necessity. So we talked about, even with the improvements under McLellan, they didn't really have a hope of making the playoffs unless the power play stayed well above average and the goaltending stayed above average as well.
And I should say before I move on, It was great to see Ken and Mick back on the screens after a month off. Those two, like we got a great performance from Bob and Danny and the entire team over there who did a good job standing in at last second's notice. And of course, the Four Nations, you wish actually it was Ken and Mick calling those games, but there are still exciting calls. But man, those two back. What was it? What was it? Mick started complaining about an icing call. He's like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me! That's a generous icing call." And Ken right away was like, "Oh boy, Mick's been off for a month. Get ready, Stripes."
Yep.
So it's like all felt right having those two call the game again. So welcome back, Ken and Mick, to the air. And I should note before we move on here that Lucas Raymond got an assist on the Patrick Kane power play goal. That was his 41st assist of the season. That matches a career high for him, and he played game 57 tonight. In case you were wondering the kind of leap Lucas Raymond took this season, he's still got 25 games left. And
Small jump.
yeah, just a little bit of a jump. JT Compher scores to make it 4-1, and then Trevor Zegras lays a hit on Michael Rasmussen that left Rasmussen shaken up. He was hurt, left the game, did not come back, so Copp and Rasmussen hurt now. And the refs completely missed it. And you watch the hit, and it was slowed down, so it seems like Rasmussen let go of the puck way sooner than you'd think. But I don't know, am I being biased? But this one looks like Zegras goes through his head. He catches some of his body, but Rasmussen's kind of leaning forward. Zegras is going upright. His hip is at Rasmussen's shoulder level. The arm, elbow, head, that was a head hit, right?
This reminds me of the Matt Cook on Mark Savard, not to the same severity, but the fact that after that incident, the NHL really started cracking down on blindside hits like this. Rasmussen is not looking at him, and you're being generous. He did not contact Rasmussen's body at all. Sure, parts of him might have brushed up against Rasmussen's arm or something as he was going through. That was shoulder to jaw. Like that. And you got to think of the height difference between those two. Like, that's targeting. If this is football, that's targeting. Like, he went straight for the head, full blindside. I understand hockey's fast and the slowed down replays make it look worse than it is for the refs. That's not one you can miss in real time. You can't. It's shoulder to jaw. Understanding the height difference between them, it's insane to me. This is not only should that have been a penalty, I'm going to be upset if there's not supplemental discipline on this one.
Gives me strong no penalty on Sunday, suspension on Monday type energy on this one for sure.
And that would be the second time for the Red Wings and the third time lately for the league, if not more. This is getting tough from the refs. I don't really understand how this keeps happening. And you know what? Call it marginal. If in the moment you're like, oh, I'm not sure if that was, body first, then head, but the head was contacted no matter what. Was the ref just not looking? It's the NHL.
I believe they call this game management, Ryan, because the Red Wings had too many power plays, too many power play goals. Red Wings can't have the next power play. But the whole thing about game management in this scenario is it led to a bunch of after the whistle insanity, which I love.
Yeah.
But the refs could have totally avoided all of this if they just closed this moment off.
And Radko Gudas was already running around that game because he took a stand-up kind of protect the puck reverse hit from Marco Kasper, who sat him down, and Gudas naturally turned around and immediately cross-checked Lucas Raymond, as you do, I guess. And he was starting to throw cross-checks around, and the game was getting really chippy. Zegras running his mouth about, and that's not new for Zegras, he yaps. He's the most infuriating, little skill player in the league, unless he's on your team. But he watched the replay, the whole crowd is reacting. He goes, no way, no effing way. And I'm like, are we watching the same hit? I don't know, it's the NHL, and sometimes you see guys and they see it, and you don't see them in the moment go, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, I hit him in the head, but you just you don't say anything, right? But he was like, no effing way. I'm like, oh, God, this guy is just so good at making everyone else think he's a pissant. The game, the refs lost control of the game after that. The only reason it didn't end in a brawl, I think, is because Anaheim made the comeback, but at the end of the second period, Vetrano's skating by him, Ben Sherratt just took a shot at Vetrano, who dropped.
I love that.
A sec. I'm sorry, that's what was going to happen. Zegras is on the ice, big scrum happens. The refs, I think, trying to make up, Detroit absolutely should have had the extra penalty. It was offsetting roughing minors. Not the right call, but they're like, yeah, we missed the shot to Rasmussen's head, so Sherratt gets away with the shot to Vetrano there. And Gudas is still trying to throw cross checks, and actually he took a kind of, not a reverse hit, but Raymond saw him coming and stood him up as well and kind of shook him up a little bit. So the kids were handling themselves against Gudas for the rest of the game. But all that starting from the refs just completely choking by missing the Rasmussen headshot. Detroit's up 2 with very little time to play. The Anaheim Ducks score. Cutter Gauthier made it 4-2 before the end of the second, I should say. And in under 3 minutes, the Ducks tied the game down to 4-3. Olin Zellweger, Cutter Gauthier ties it 4-4 with under a minute to play. And we went, oh my God, it's happening again. And they had I don't know how many minutes of empty net they couldn't convert. And it wasn't like the egregious comedy of errors of last time, but it was pretty, I don't want to say inexcusable. These things happen and everyone's a little bit off coming back from the break, but you can't do this twice in 2 days. And it was made worse by the fact that they were playing twice in 2 days.
It's inexcusable when it happened in the Minnesota Wild game, but you could probably make a very justified argument. The Minnesota Wild are a better hockey team than the Detroit Red Wings this year. So losing to them or blowing a lead to them is not the craziest thing in the world. I don't know if anybody's been paying attention to the Anaheim Ducks this year. They are terrible. They are an atrocious hockey team in just about every facet. Yeah, sometimes things happen. But against the Anaheim Ducks, when you're in a playoff race, those things can't happen. You can find little things and little justifications and little excuses on every play in the history of hockey. It's the Ducks. You have to get those excuses out of your system.
It's kind of the same story as Minnesota in terms of like, yeah, at the end of the day, you walk away with at least a point, so it's not the end of the world. But again, you have an opportunity here to walk away with 3 or 4 points in what is an ugly weekend. And Detroit got there. Patrick Kane, overtime winner. But as we talked about at the top of the show, was it an easy road? No. Do they have to clean up how they close out their games? Just even the last 10 minutes of the third period. Absolutely. But you know what? They got it done. Everyone had a heart attack a few times there. I'm glad Ken and Mick got to call a win in their return. That would have been a back-to-back blown leads. That would have turned 4 points into 2, would have been tough, but 3 points of 4. Thanks. Honestly, Marco Kasper was, I think, we had 2 weeks off from him, so people might have forgotten, but he was a dog this game, worked extremely hard. That goal, like Patrick Kane doesn't get that opportunity without Marco Kasper and the work he did, and the work he did earlier in the game too. I think he deserved a ton of credit there, and the Red Wings come out with the 5-4 win. Were there missed calls on, Zegras and on Trouba when he just cocked Berggren in the face and everyone else? Sure. But, this was not the prettiest hockey by the Red Wings. But the way I chalk it up is rusty or gassed or whatever, but you walked away with 3 of 4. So you thank your lucky stars and you work on whatever it is you need to work on after this, as Todd McLellan, I'm sure, is going to be doing.
This overtime was stupid. And I'm not even talking about just that hilarious Patrick Kane shift. Again, when we were watching it in your kitchen, how many times did I point out, why are you taking that shot? Just the Red Wings were so lucky to get out of that overtime because they tried so many unscreened, uncontested shots from distance that had no chance in going in. And they got lucky on a couple of them that Dostal decided to freeze it rather than continue play because, again, I like the Red Wings shoot more approach in regulation. In 3-on-3, where possession is everything, a bad shot is a turnover. And they got stupid lucky because they had 3 or 4 of them in overtime where they had no business even attempting it.
When you're a team in a wild card race and you're a decent team but not a perennial playoff team, you got to be lucky. If you want to be bad, you got to be lucky sometimes if you want the points. So
take the points, clean up the mistakes tomorrow.
There are a lot of verifiably and justifiably frustrated fans with how the weekend went, 100%. And there are a lot of fans going, hell yeah, dudes rock, who cares, move on, 3 or 4 points. I don't care what turnovers Patrick Kane had. He scored the OT winner. Justified. Hell yeah. Sure. It's all of it. But the MO is you don't want too much of that after this. Like this is something you need to correct. So that's Detroit's tumultuous return to play. They have, we've talked about it a lot, a pretty heavy, tough schedule, the toughest in the league for the remainder of the season. They have Minnesota on Tuesday on the road, so that's a rematch for them, but it's not going to be as easy as the home game before we're back with you on Wednesday. And after that, they have the Columbus Blue Jackets, February 27th, a little preview there of the Stadium Series, and then on March 1st, Stadium Series in Ohio, outdoor game, 6 p.m. against Columbus again. And that's important because Columbus is hot on Detroit's heels in the wild card playoff race. As of the time of recording, so there's games ongoing right now, the Tampa Bay game finished, et cetera, but as of the time of recording, Detroit is in the first wild card playoff spot, 64 points, 57 games played, 21 regulation wins. Ottawa is 2 points behind them, same amount of games played, one more regulation win. So as of now, they would hold the tiebreaker if they catch up. Columbus, 2 points behind Detroit, same amount of games played, 19 regulation wins. Boston, one more game played, 3 points back. The Rangers, 4 points back, same amount of games played. And we'll see the results of the Islanders game. But that pack obviously is still tight. That's how we went into the break. And Detroit is very fortunate and relieved that they got 3 or 4 after a bad weekend, because I hate to say it, you don't have a lot of margin for error down the stretch because they don't have a friendly schedule that gives them any buffer, so to speak. And we're going to keep repeating that. And so all in all, process, kind of good, pretty terrible when it mattered. Result, really good. You'll take it. Okay, more on the world of hockey, but first a word from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. We always hear about red flags in relationships or maybe a free agency contract, the warning signs we should avoid. But what about green flags? What are the signs of a healthy, supportive relationship? Therapy can help you recognize those green flags, practice them in your own relationships, and even embody them yourself. Whether you're dating, already married, building friendships, or just focusing on personal growth, it's important to surround yourself with relationships that love you back. Therapy isn't just for people going through major challenges. It's a great way to learn healthy coping skills, set boundaries, and grow into the best version of yourself. It's about giving yourself the tools to navigate life with confidence and clarity, just like a GM at the trade deadline. BetterHelp makes therapy easy and accessible. It's entirely online, so you can connect with a licensed therapist from anywhere. With a network of over 30,000 professionals, you can find someone who fits your needs, and if it's not the right match, you can switch therapists at no extra cost. Discover your relationship green flags with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/wingedwheel today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/wingedwheel. Welcome back. We would love to talk a lot more about the Red Wings, but it's, as you can tell,
we have more important games to talk about, Ryan.
That's right. Yeah, you get it was almost the 25-0 that you predicted.
We were getting there.
Team Canada, Team USA, the biggest hockey game, like across broad spectrum. It's not just two teams playing a cup final, game 7. Like, this has the most engaged fan interest. Final of the Four Nations face-off, which turned out to be a resounding success for the NHL. ESPN had 9.3 million viewers. In Canada, there were another 4 or 5 million. It was the most watched hockey game in the last 30 plus years by far. Unbelievable end crescendo to the tournament. And I can't open with anything else other than I could not look stupider about what I said about Jordan Binnington than I did after he saved the game. Not 1, not 2. If I care to edit this, I put LeBron's face over mine right now. Not 3, 4 times in overtime. That was the most clutch international goaltending performance maybe that I've ever seen. It's definitely up there for one of the top of all time. Jordan Binnington came in, completed the exact thesis of why they brought him, of like, yeah, he might let in some stinkers, but he's nails when it matters. He won them that tournament, and he shut up every single person who doubted him, us at this table included. I owe him an apology.
You know how Superman is normal on his home planet, but then when he gets to Earth, because of how it all works, he just That's Jordan Binnington and TD Garden in Boston. Because he was underwhelming in Montreal. And then all of a sudden he gets back to the place where it all happened for him 6 years ago almost now. And he turns into Superman. We found the secret to unlock Jordan Binnington. We just need to petition Boston to host it every year.
Doesn't matter what he does for St. Louis. Like, that's a different player. Like, he absolutely dialed in. And we said last episode and the episodes before, like, because it's such a short tournament and because the stakes are higher, every single goal is going to be scrutinized. So you just need to show up when it matters. Oh my God, did he ever?
I would have never bet in my life that Jordan Binnington at any point in his career could outdo a Connor Hellebuyck, let alone in maybe definitely the most important international hockey games since the 2010 Olympics. 40 million Canadians owe Jordan Binnington an apology because I never saw that coming.
And like, the States were taking it to Canada in that part of the overtime. Matthews with, I think, multiple opportunities. There was Tkachuk's side door. That save, the glove just above the pad, that would probably be the save of the year when it's all said and done, like of the calendar year. It would have to be unreal. And the States at that point, I was like,
they're the better team. Canada looked completely out of sorts.
Yep.
We were texting back and forth, and it was a lot of, what is this person doing? Why are they on the ice? Or where is so-and-so?
Yeah.
It was getting a little testy there for the Canadians for a large majority of that game.
And Slavin and the American defense was outstanding as usual. I think they were exactly what we expected them to be, just absolutely lights out. I don't think it was probably the most forgettable game of Fox's career, and I don't think there were really great performances across the board like you saw the first time for the Americans, but I do think they were the better team. And like Max said last episode, Hellebuyck doesn't have a history of playoff clutch performances, and that's what it came down to. And, we were talking in the chat, one thing we were saying all game, and really all tournament, was McDavid has to be hurt, right? He's not taken over.
He looked average, and when you're out there in a game like that with that amount of talent, that's still a compliment. But for him, he looked very average.
Yeah, and because again, the Americans were doing a great job of keeping Canada at bay when they had the most talented player. Like, for the most part, they were making them take shots from distance. Like, when McKinnon opened scoring, that was what the Americans were hoping to do. They didn't want him to crash the net or get in tight. They wanted him to have to take a shot from distance. But you could still see McKinnon be dangerous. You could still see a not 100% Makar be dangerous. You didn't see a lot of that from McDavid. Lo and behold, who's left out in front?
And to tie it all together, I think that was probably Auston Matthews' best performance in a big game in his career until that final moment where he blew his coverage and I shouldn't say just him, but the American players that were out on the ice, and probably Auston Matthews, who was responsible for the best player on the ice, left him wide open in the slot. And Mitch Marner had his second amazing pass of the game, and McDavid ain't missing that. That was incredible.
When you're Auston Matthews, you can only do so much to defend the most clutch player in the NHL right now and leave Mitch Marner that much time in the corner with the puck.
Yeah, there's a lot of apologies going Mitch Marner's way, too.
He was phenomenal that game, and he was getting better as the tournament went on.
In defense of Auston Matthews, that started when Fox missed cutting off the puck behind the net.
Yep.
And it caused everyone got scrambled, assignments got switched, and Matthews had to make a split-second decision. He made the wrong one because at the end of the day, no matter what, it's like a trump card. You don't leave Connor McDavid in the highest danger area alone with time and space to shoot. There's not a goalie in the world who is likely to be able to get his glove or blocker or whatever out to save that. But he had to make that split-second decision because of that breakdown as the puck went behind the net and Fox wasn't able to cut that puck off, and that's where it started. So,
well, that's part of the point, too. It's talking about McDavid looking average all game. The U.S. defense isn't just great. They're elite skating as a group. Like Werenski, I know McAvoy was hurt. Slavin, Faber, these guys can skate, and that's the one thing you need to be able to neutralize Connor McDavid. Like, if the U.S. had won this tournament, my MVP was Jacob Slavin. He was
I agree.
phenomenal that term. He had at least, I think, 2 plays this game that were sure goals that he thwarted. I think the one literally was on Sidney Crosby's stick in the crease with an open net, and Slavin got to it a half second sooner to save a goal. He was phenomenal, but yeah, that's the thing. You get the icing call. Canada gets their matchup. Game's over 5 seconds later. Like it's just a testament to how good some of those American D were, where when Adam Fox gets out on the ice against Connor McDavid and Mitch Marner, that's it. That's all she wrote.
There's no way you're going to pick a defensive defenseman to win an MVP most of the time as is in these kinds of tournaments or even in cup finals. And I say this with sadness in my heart, but you're especially not going to pick it when the other team won. I actually do think Slavin had a case even with Canada winning. McKinnon was like, they just picked someone who performed well all tournament, but I'm like, was he really the tournament's MVP? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Like that was McDavid's Crosby golden goal moment, and it was like that was the kind of dramatic. I mean, 3/4 of our listeners here are going to disagree, but that was
they're not listening anymore. So
yeah, that's right. They've probably tuned out by now.
Continue.
You threw to Evan at the start of the conversation, and the stop button was hit.
If I wasn't so lazy at this time of the day, I was going to wear my Team Canada jersey. And you all know I hate jerseys. I do not wear jerseys. I don't wear them games. I don't buy jerseys. But I was going to wear mine for the episode. But
I'm surprised you didn't wear your Team Canada, like with the players' faces, Speedo for the episode.
That's for the Patreon.
Exclusive. That's right. But like, what a crowning moment on an unbelievable tournament. And hockey is scripted. Of course it was going to be McDavid. Actually, if I remember correctly, in 2010, Crosby wasn't even having the best game either when he scored, but that's not what people remember, right?
He was getting a lot of criticism from the tournament as a whole. I remember it clearly. He did not have a great tournament, but when you're an elite player, you only need one moment. When we were talking in our prediction episode, I think I had Canada 4-2 winning, and I said the difference was going to be the McDavids and the McKinnons of the world just have that extra, whatever you want to call it, that the American forwards don't have, and that would be the difference. Here we are, elite forwards, Connor McDavid, Nathan McKinnon, and Sam Bennett with the goals for Canada. So, Jake Sanderson scored for the States, so I guess it equals all in the end. But this truly, truly, truly was a best case scenario for the NHL. The players were into it. I saw the big sports media figureheads in the US congratulating Canada for winning the All-Star game after, because they were so angry that they lost it, which sounds like a shot because they were being petty, embarrassing losers. But that's actually an important thing, because those types of people and those types of big personalities were that invested in this.
You're talking like the non-hockey media, the Pat McAfee's and
your Pat McAfee's, your, I don't know what other football guys were watching, your Barstools, your everybody. Everybody was in on this, which hockey has never seen. And never like this.
Well, they unintentionally got themselves into the spotlight, right? Like the NFL is done. The NBA is going through.
Well, that's not unintentional. They very specifically planned this to avoid the NFL.
The fact that the NBA is having an identity crisis right now, and it just so happens that the players bought in, and they had a game where 6 players fought within 9 seconds of the start of the game. I don't want to say the NHL lucked into this, but there's been a lot of things happening outside of the hockey that has made this a staple of people's entertainment time.
Do you mean the biggest cold geopolitical conflict between the two most closely tied nations in the modern world since Canada was Britain, and there's the whole War of 1812?
And we have been booing their national anthem, so it's brought in some some perimeter viewers for sure.
Yeah, I want to be very careful with this, because Evan's absolutely correct. We should not be giving the NHL too much credit here, because they did what everybody's been begging for them to do for a decade. This was not some cool, well thought out, complicated marketing scheme or plan or whatever that they thought up all on their own and executed flawlessly. This was a dumbed down version, even, because again, it was only the 4 countries, of what everybody had been begging for. for a decade, and they got lucky. I mean, nobody's getting lucky in this current geopolitical situation, but it added drama. The NBA, being what the NBA is right now, added a really good contrast that favored the NHL. And then they lucked into some of these players genuinely hating each other. Like the whole thing between the Kachucks and the Hagel, like it's perfect. This is everything the NHL needed, and it was so good. All the Stephen A. Smiths and Barstools and McAfee's and Dan Orlovsky, JJ Watt, all these people who are never talking about hockey, never watch
JJ Watt
hockey.
talks about hockey a lot.
He does. He's actually a pretty good hockey player from what I've seen. But all these guys are putting it into the timeline and the feed of people who don't follow hockey accounts. Again, I relate this back to the Stephen Bonner-Forrest Griffin fight that put the UFC on the map, where everybody was just telling each other, dude, you gotta watch this.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane. So the fact this game didn't disappoint was also, for the NHL, lucky. It was a phenomenal game.
I actually think this game was better than the first one.
Yeah, it 1,000% was.
I agree. The first one was, and like, not to discredit, it was an amazing win by the Americans, but they won by scoring their goals and then putting on a defensive clinic after, where I don't think Canada was really as dangerous as maybe people think they were. And this one had its electricity.
That may have been the tightest checking, no room out there type game I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. And you want to know what the absolute luckiest thing across what both of you said, and all of that absolutely applies. The luckiest thing here, under a year from now, they're at it again at the Olympics. That is such a win for the NHL, because you now have, if you're an American who just got into the sport, you can say, oh, we're doing this again in a year, by the way. And that's when you get payback. And if you're the NHL, you get to not have to go back to the All-Star game next year. It's 2 years before you do that again. And you get another year of intensified electric hockey. And now all of these non-NHL media personalities are going to be prepared, and they're going to focus on this. And they're the ones going to be putting together the Freebird hype videos. And they're the ones who are going to get their talking points before. And you're going to see it on Around the Horn, and you're going to see it across the board. This is such a huge win. I think it was Brady Tkachuk who, I think he said, it was like, can't wait to get these guys again in 4 years. And it's like someone to remind all the players the way the timing worked out. But it's 1 year, not even 1 year, and we get this back, and that is such a win.
Not even that. If the NHL has such an opportunity here to not screw this up, because
well, you may as well stop talking.
I know. But again, where they're lucking into this, because now all the eyes are on the NHL, and you have this great playoff race going on in the East with a lot of very good markets. Detroit's in the thick of it. New York's in the thick of it. You can argue Philly is or isn't in, but that's a great market for them to even be on the possibility of being in this race. Oh, and by the way, one of the most unbreakable records in hockey might fall this year. Ovechkin, first weekend back, hat trick.
Yeah.
Like, they have all the momentum in the world right now. All they have to do is stay out of their own way. Don't do anything stupid. Pump up the playoff race. Pump up the Ovechkin chase. Man, if they could expedite the expansion process to get 2 new markets excited here too. It's not going to happen.
Why do you have to talk like this at this time of the night?
But I don't want to be angry at 10:19 p.m.
But no, it's this cascade of events where you have the Four Nations, the OV goal chase, the great playoff race, the Olympics in a year, maybe expansion after. They have this momentum. They have to find a way to keep it going, right? It's like you have the American public right now where you have to keep their attention, but you have it. And they are all in, and they are invested, and they are excited, and they want everything to do with it. But you have to keep that attention.
There's a lot of competing things for the attention of the American public right now. Put it gently.
Yeah.
Moving on.
But somehow, hockey is one of them.
Right? It's like in the craziest year of probably all of our lives so far. And it's, oh my God, it's not even March yet. It's February 23rd. And hockey is one of the most searched things online right now. Massive win. And I know it sucks. Like, if the Americans are heartbroken, Dylan Larkin's heartbroken, but for hockey, it's a huge win.
I feel bad for you.
Rematch in a year, baby. Let's do it. Anyhow, we could talk about the game forever. I want to bring attention to something Dylan Larkin said after the game, and Ryan S. Clark posted this on Twitter for credit. And Dylan Larkin talked a lot about, you know what I think this does? I think we've had a tough time with USA Hockey getting guys to play in the World Championships. I think guys are at home watching this, and I hope they're wanting a piece of this. And he talked a lot about, you want to play for your country, you want to put on the crest or the logo or the tricron or whatever it is. You have to put in the effort in the tournaments that weren't, the Olympics or the Four Nations. When you could have gone home, if you're healthy, go play, because international hockey is ongoing, and some of these tournaments are less glamorous because it's not best on best, because the playoffs are going on and not everyone goes. But there's something to be said for that. And agree or not, I think it's also, like we talked about this last episode, Dylan Larkin, proved a ton of people wrong. Another game where he looked completely dangerous. The puck was on his stick in overtime, and I actually thought he was going to end it. I was like, oh, he's about to do this. Proved a ton of people wrong, moved up the lineup, still should have been used more in my mind.
Yeah, wasn't he playing with Matthews by the end of the game? Like, he was on the top line.
And I think this is the guy who is a heart and soul international player. And when you have someone like that, I'm sorry, that's your captain. Matthews has taken a lot of heat, justifiably or not. But to me, when you have a guy who wants guys to buy in, even for the tournament where no one watches, and he's saying you have to go and play and represent your country, because that's how you build these rivalries and that's how you build your program, so that when you get to the big stage, you get the result that you want. That's your captain. That's your Captain America. I'm biased.
You make him the captain because he's the chaos. He's the good. Then you make Brady Tkachuk or Matthew Tkachuk an assistant because they're the chaotic leader.
Totally.
And then you make someone on defense like Canada did with Makara, another assistant, and that's your sort of tripod of leadership.
I have two thoughts on this. One, if Larkin's not wearing a letter at the Olympics, the USA isn't serious about hockey. And two, I sincerely hope he never plays another World Championships.
He's played a lot of hockey, that guy.
Ryan, think of the schedule. I hope he never plays another World Championship.
Yeah, I agree. That'd be great if he wasn't so privy to the World Championships.
I hope he's playing hockey during the World Championships, and it better not be for the United States of America.
Well, the World Championship is only going to get a massive boost from this, because there's not a lot of opportunity to prove yourself at the international level, especially for guys who got left off. Like, there's incentives for Americans, Canadians, Finnish, Swedes, but all the other countries that are now going to be part of the Olympics, all those players in the NHL or the other pro leagues should be in attendance. So the World Championship is going to turn into a strong tournament going Tage
Thompson will be there this year for his audition.
I think he is already there.
He might. Yeah,
he might. But it matters to these organizations.
And I think that's a good call considering Buffalo this season. But yes.
Exactly. So I brought him up specifically. But it does matter to the organizations as well, because there was a lot of talk that the reason Sam Montembeault was Canada's third goalie instead of Logan Thompson or Cam Talbot was because he went to the World Championships last year. He made that commitment, went and played for him.
Yeah. Other things to watch from this, I don't think it's going to affect, like we just talked about how great this is. So these tournaments are happening. The Tkachuks are both hurt. I think Brady's shorter term than Matthew. There's talks of how long the Matthew Tkachuk injury is.
The McAvoy scenario seems like an absolute gong show between the two medical teams, the United States medical team and the Boston Bruins medical team.
And the Wild were representing the state's medical team. And,
right.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have
and it's awkward because the GM of the Bruins was the GM for Canada. So that's all a whole cluster.
Hold on, I have to make the joke while we're here. If Brady Tkachuk breaks his thumb, does that just get labeled as a full body injury?
That's a broken neck. I'll like, honestly, as much as the guys might piss you off, depending on if they're on your team or not on your team, the NHL owes those guys a check for what they did for this tournament.
I think they're going to get a check.
They're getting paid plenty, but yeah. Okay, very quick NHL news before overtime here. Things are not progressing towards a surefire extension for Mikko Rantanen, which is great news if you are a team in hopes of signing Mikko Rantanen to a 7-year deal in free agency, to the point where it has been suggested that the Canes could look for a trade if they think that they're not going to be able to re-sign him. I don't really agree with that from the Canes' perspective, and they haven't done anything or announced anything, but if you're the Canes, you're making a run this year.
He is your trade deadline acquisition.
You could also get a pretty big net positive out of this because you can retain more salary. Now all of a sudden, Mikko Rantanen, you could send him back west for what would he be at? Like $2-3 million or something like that? Like,
Oh man, Vegas would love that.
No,
So-
but no, I'm not even being funny. They would give
Might be
up
right.
the farm for that.
And it would be probably smart to do.
Yeah, I don't think. But the thing is, I don't think they get a now level player back like a Rantanen or a Nichas. So if they have hopes of doing it this year, then that's a net loss for them, even if they come out net positive asset wise.
I know they gave up a lot, and I know the trade hasn't gone their way so far. There's still a lot of hockey left. And in my mind, I'm like, at some point, you just got to go for it. If you're a team that's known for not spending and, your facilities, now it's out there that your facilities are garbage and you're not a big market, like, if you have an opportunity to go for it, you got to do it, right? Like,
You made the big splash. Like, make your bed and lay in it now.
And who's the boogeyman in their division? It's probably them. Like, when are you ever going to have a Metro
well,
as weak as it is right now?
the Washington Capitals actually look like they might be the best team in the
Okay,
league.
Washington is sick this year and they're a great story, but is anybody really looking at them as like the boogeyman in the East right now?
I would take Washington over Carolina in a playoff series right now, yeah.
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't?
No.
They're 14 points clear, Brad.
I am well aware.
Sorry, you're saying you would play Washington?
No.
You're saying you'd play...
I would pick the Washington Capitals to beat the Carolina Hurricanes in a hypothetical
Oh,
playoff series
100%,
run.
yes.
And I'm taking Carolina.
Well, I hope we get that series. They're not
It'd be a
poised to
phenomenal
right now,
series.
but
Phenomenal series.
I mean, yeah, but well, actually, let's talk about Washington. One, it's 57 games in. They are the real deal this season. They are doing a phenomenal job. Alexander Ovechkin, 13 goals back after missing a month or whatever it was, the broken leg. Hat-trick, 13 goals back of the goals record all-time NHL goal scoring leader. You talked about it just before. What a story this season. And I think this, I hope it goes down to the wire and everyone's tuning into the last game of the season kind of thing, because that's the kind of energy and excitement that I think the NHL would that's what the fans deserve.
Oh, again, every storyline's a great storyline right now. End of the season, dude might hit it by the trade deadline the way he's going.
Well, the Red Wings play Washington, was it twice in March? And that makes me a bit nervous. On the 7th, and that would be a bit rich. But then on the 18th as well, both in Washington. And I don't think that's too close. I think this is an April thing if it's happening. But I don't know. Ovi proves a lot of people wrong a lot.
Empty net, do you think he breaks a record on an empty net?
It would kind of be fitting. I don't think he wants to do it that way.
I think he shoots that puck 70 rows over the glass.
If it's game 82, maybe not.
I'm just throwing it out there. I know how this goes. If Ovi walks into that game against Detroit at home, 3 or 4 goals short of the record,
Smash the over.
oh my, I have never bet on sports in my life. I am dumping my life savings into that bet.
$6 on Ovi right there.
You think I'm worth that much? Thank you.
I assume you took the kids Tooth Fairy money or something.
Ryan, do you know where that money comes from?
The Tooth Fairy. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What are you trying to imply, Brad?
That I am, in fact, the Tooth Fairy, and I am very tired.
You do wear the wings, you just can't see it on the podcast camera. Okay, it is late. We are going to talk a lot more about all of this on future episodes, but for now, we're going to take a quick break to hear from the sponsors of the Winged Wheel podcast, and when we're back, the final segment of the show.
We're going to overtime.
Overtime is brought to you by our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. The bonus content, the bloopers that we'll throw in there inevitably, the giveaways, 2 tickets to every Detroit Red Wings home game, the Discord, all of that and lots more. It allows us to do everything we do on the show, support the Jamie Daniels Foundation, run Winged Wheel podcast nights, record at way past when we should be awake and recording. Patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast. We owe our patrons everything. C-Nods says, man, 3 out of 4 points never felt so terrible. Anyways, the Four Nations is over. Buy and sell the stock of one player from each team, excluding Larkin and Raymond, as we know you guys are buying there. So Canada, USA, Sweden, Finland, buy and sell stock from each team.
All right, what country are we doing
America's
first?
easy. I think it's Slavin, buy, sell, Fox.
You sell Fox, yeah.
I still think he's a good defenseman. I think some of their depth forwards you could make a case for.
Brock Nelson, maybe a sell, but it's hard in that tournament because that's a guy who's going to get buried.
And he's already 97 years old.
He did as I thought he was going to.
Yeah.
But I agree hard on Slavin. And Thing is with Slavin, like I think Marner said it, if he wasn't playing in Carolina, that never would have been a mystery. It's just that Carolina locked him up to a great contract and he plays a not flashy game, but the Red Wings know a not flashy game on defense means you're winning. So
Yeah.
Team Canada by
Marner.
Yeah.
Thomas Harley.
Yeah, I thought Thomas Harley did well.
Binnington.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. Sell is weird.
Doughty.
Marchand.
But they're older, right? Like I didn't really expect much.
That's when you sell, right? Because like the Olympics are a year away. Like, man, Marchand looked like he was struggling to keep up at points this tournament. I didn't love Seth Jarvis. He looked like he was a little outmatched, but he's young enough that I think there'll be a reasonable amount of improvement to bring him back.
I saw enough from Seth Jarvis to think later on he's going to be even better.
I can agree with that. Yeah, I didn't love Doughty's tournament. Didn't love Parayko's tournament. Man, Canada's backup goalie was invisible.
The backup goalie was the other Jekyll and Hyde of Jordan Binnington. Sweden, Eriksson Ek, if we're not allowed to pick Raymond. Bratt.
Yeah, I was going to say I was toying between Eriksson Ek or Bratt.
Carlson had a sneaky good tournament too.
You had to give him that. Brad didn't want to bring it up.
Yeah.
And who are we selling on? Evan, we'll give you the honors.
The expensive bad one.
William Nylander. Not injured as Pettersson.
Nylander wasn't terrible.
He step up.
Outside of the Ek, Raymond, Bratt line, there wasn't a lot of buying for the forwards.
Raquel. I could have bought
Raquel, yeah.
He definitely outperformed my expectations.
Finland sell on their goaltending, which was supposed to be lights out for them, but they just never really got anything going consistently.
I'm buying on Ole Mata.
Offensive dynamo, baby.
I'm buying on Mikael Granlund.
Yes.
He was excellent that tournament, especially given his age and everything. Turns out getting a guy out of San Jose does wonders for him. I'm selling softly on Mikko Rantanen.
Same.
You know what? This is what I love when this happens in hockey. You
He's
just take
still
a
elite,
10-game sample and everyone's out on a guy. Like,
we're buying and selling, Ryan, on a 4-game tournament.
Yeah. Look, it's future Red Wing. I don't want to trash the guy when in 20 episodes we're going to be talking about him coming to Detroit. You know,
Ryan.
We're selling high.
Ryan, people are listening.
Oh, that's right. Mikko Rantanen's not worth signing.
There it is. $8 million at most.
I hope that gets clipped out of context.
It will be, and that's fine.
We should know better. It's my own damn fault. That stays in because I should know better.
Again, if we get clipped for something stupid we said because the good thing happened.
Last time that happened was Moritz Seider, so.
I will happily look at the camera and say Mikko Rantanen is terrible at hockey if it means the Detroit Red Wings get him in the end. But no, since he left Colorado, it's been eye-opening in Carolina and now Finland. He hasn't looked like the same player. And I get it. Shock of the trade, everything. The guy's brain is probably a mess right now, understandably so, but he hasn't looked great.
Moving on here, next question. Jasper DeBoer says, returning patron, I asked ChatGPT what it would take for us to acquire expensive Pettersson, and its response was the Red Wings could offer forwards JT Compher and Michael Rasmussen, top prospect Nate Danielson, and goalie prospect Trey Augustine, and a 2025 first-round pick in exchange for Pettersson. Who besides Evan says yes?
Nobody. Not a single person on the face of this earth outside of maybe his parents.
That's too rich. If Pettersson returns to form and scores 100 points every year, then you turn out right, but that's certainly not his value right now. You're not paying that much. Screw you, ChatGPT.
I would have stopped after the first two names that were mentioned.
Chipkin Nutgit says, what would you do before the trade deadline to try to improve the PK? I don't think I'm a firm believer that a PK can be solved from within with most rosters. If that comes with like a depth defensive move that isn't like big impact, then sure. But I don't know that you're going out there doing too much on that front.
You could probably give up like a third for Ole Mata.
You can bring back Jake Wallman.
On the penalty kill?
No. Well, I mean, could it hurt?
Maybe.
Willing to find out.
Wings fan in Chicago says, of all the big names potentially available, Rantanen, Marner, Cousins, Zegras, and Pettersson, sorry, Evan, who would each of you want most?
Marner. I don't think that's a debate in my head.
Is there some recency bias there?
No, this is one time where I can say I have been on that wagon all year. This isn't a new opinion I'm forming.
Over Rantanen?
Yes. Center, more versatility, and he's more of a playmaker, which is more of what Detroit's lacking. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't go sign Rantanen because you have too many shooters. He's so elite that doesn't matter. But Marner plays center. He's gotten Selke votes in the past. He's a playmaker.
But he doesn't play center all the time.
He does. He can. It's positional flexibility, which is clutch. But if anything else, this Four Nations should have just eased concern about he doesn't step up in big moments. He just stepped up big in the biggest moment of his career so far. So it's at least in him to do.
I'm still a Mikko Rantanen guy because I think if you get a guy of his production and his size, and he's 6 months? Well, yeah, 6 months older than Marner.
Am I left with Pettersson? Or is
No,
this
you pick whoever you want.
Okay, I was going to say, Jesus. You're really
Probably-
making me
Dylan
mad.
Cousins, come on down.
I don't think McJesus is available. I think Edmonton's going to hang on to him.
I wish. I don't know. It's one flavor of one flavor of the other. They both have enticing skill sets. I think, gun to the earth right now, at this moment in time, I'd be a Mitch Marner guy based on what I've seen over the past little bit.
To both your credits, actually, if you have to acquire them in free agency, they're going to command top dollar. And who are you more inspired to give $14+ million to? I will say Mitch Marner probably offers you some more certainty, but let's ask again in 25 games, Okay, we have time for a little bit more here. Steve Fresh Cheese Bags says, Steve should absolutely call up Bill Armstrong and offer a mid or late round pick for Juuso Välimäki. His previous season's charts are really good, but this year he's been buried behind Sergachev, Mata, and Ian Cole. Makes $2 million this year and next before UFA. And the low-key trade deadline target should be Connor Murphy. Agree or disagree? What's the cost?
Välimäki, so he's a lefty. I don't know if he can play the right side, because if he can, that's a no-brainer. If he plays left side, then you're arguing him or Gustafsson. Before the game yesterday, I said Gustafsson. After that turnover, I could be swayed.
Yeah. Like those kinds of moves, I know this is kind of a fence-sitting answer, but it all just depends on the price. I'm not paying a big price for either. I don't think, even though it would be an improvement, I don't think it's necessary or something that you couldn't solve elsewhere in free agency. Now, would it help in a playoff push? Sure, it absolutely would, but you have to think, like, what kind of premium are you giving up here? If you're swapping some prospects around and you're giving a better pick, but you're getting one back, sure, but there's a lot of moves that could help on defense. There's a lot of moves that could just fizzle out and just turn out to be nothing, and you get another copy of what you already have. But I like the thesis on those guys for sure. Just not if there's a bidding war, really. I don't think it makes sense for Detroit. There's a Tarasenko comment here, and actually during the show we should have talked more about Tarasenko's absolutely being auditioned right now. Like, he's out there in late game, net pulled for the other team, overtime. Like, Tarasenko's never been played in these moments all year. He's been terrible in these moments. They're trying to either pad his stats or show him off to the scouts in the building as we approach the trade deadline. So there's something there.
And it's not working.
No, because it's Tarasenko this year. Last one. Trent Thuros says, since Seth Jones is being actively shopped, should the Wings be interested, and would you be? I'd be interested if a combination of retention and contracts like Hall and Tarasenko went back to even out the money would allow Edmonton to go back up with Seider and take the pressure off ASP next year.
We had a really good conversation about this in one of our group chats, and a lot of people made a lot of excellent points. I ultimately fell in the category of, I don't see how this makes any sense for the Wings. I think if you get him close to half retained, that's excellent value, and he's a good enough player to play on the second pair with Edvinsson. That would be a phenomenal pair. But to get that much retention, you are paying a holy hell premium. And that makes no sense for Detroit, especially when you factor in ASP coming in the next few years, which would put up another roadblock for him, which, again, I'm not opposed to having 3 elite D going down the right side and you build from that side. But just for what Seth Jones is, how much retention you would need, that price would get absolutely unreasonable very quickly before you hit the line of, and before you got anywhere close to the line of what you would be willing to do.
Yeah, $9.5 million, full no move, 5 years after this one. The retention would have to be maxed out for me to be comfortable with that much term. I don't think Seth Jones is anywhere worth that contract. I think it was terrible the moment it was signed. I'll hear the argument of like Seth Jones can be useful if you ignore the contract, but you can't. If Chicago's retaining so much where they're making it worthwhile to bring in, you'd have to give up a lot, and that's where it breaks down. If Chicago wants to give him up for like nothing, then I'll hear the conversation.
With retention, though. But in the NHL, what is $4 million of retention over 5 years worth? Multiple firsts?
Should be worth multiple firsts, yeah.
Like, there's no reality.
Well, we say that. Sometimes you get some dumb GMs. Okay, it's late. Brad's sick. Evan has been actually legally asleep for the past 30 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to wrap up this episode of the Winged Wheel Podcast. We're going to be back with you on Wednesday. More to come on the topics we didn't get to today. Thank you all so very much for tuning in. Thank you to the sponsors of the Winged Wheel Podcast. To all of our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in and spending your time, whether it's the morning or if you're a sicko who stayed up late for this, with us. And to all of our Patreon supporters, we can't say thank you enough. Patreon.com/wingedwheelpodcast if you want to support the show. And if you want to support us, but Patreon's not for you, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and leave a rating. Thumbs up, stars, write a review, tell a friend. All of that really helps us out. To all of our name level supporters on Patreon, we appreciate you more than we can say. Arjun Shankar, Yves Bartels on behalf of the Sarah Grand Foundation, Aikfer, THL Champ, Samuel Soderholm, Icon, Alexander Hansen, Ghost of OSBP, Glenn Brabham, Sea Lion, Matthew M. Rice, Adam Rose, Adam Zuiza, Admiral Matt S. of the Cheesebag Navy, Alex Toger, Anna Sleeman, Asher Killian, Beer League Legend, Best James Bond, Bingo Bango, Brandon Mann, Brett Kokesh, Carl, Lieutenant Analuski, Carl Provi, CB55, Citizen High Five, Clip Clop Nene, Connor Scovey, Craig Kibble, Denny's Gamer Girl, Derek Enstam, DJ Denton, Eric Hill, Give Blood Fight Probert, Goose Looney's Drinking Club, Grand Rapids Girly, Griffin God Creatives, Hatrick Sandine Pelka, Hockeytown Love, Hockeytown Matt, Hassam El Kassem, Jay Gollum, Jacob Turner, James McLean, aka Jambo, Jeff Pridemore, Jennifer Morris, John Ingalls, Jonathan Miller, Kaylin Wood, Kasper the Friendly Post, Lunchbox, Mark Hernandez, Marty, Matt Keeler, Matt McKay, Michael Ludland, Mr. Guzzi, Now I Have to Learn How to Click on a Macintosh, Podgy713, RA, Raptor Kitchen, Roy Donk, Ryan Britt, Sam Bankson, Skeletor, Slim Smitty Cards, Stephen Ortlieb, That's What I Appreciate About You, Wallman's Elite Dancing D, Wings Finish Chicago, Eyes Are Playing Stan, Aaron Hudson, General Andy Bohan of the Cheesebag Army, $20 extra for a dad's room, AA Ron, AB, All Motor No Hands, and Stanislavski, Ballingham Acid Balls, Bex, Bing Bop, Boom Boom, Boom Bop, Bam, C.E. Hayes, Chimp Kim Nutgits, Chris Felinsky, Commander Ben Barron of the Cheesebag Space Force, Connor Leighton, Corey Prida, Darren Fick, Datsukes Dangleberries, Deep In, Seider, Dylan Larkin Trade Sacrifice, DeLucas Raymond, Eric Nance, Ethan, Izakowski, brand new name level supporter. Ethan, welcome to the Dub Dub Club. Thank you so much for your support, man. Evan Beckner, 4 patrons facing off, Gene Sullivan, Grepsky, Griffey Boy. I, for one, welcome our Canadian overlords, James Pridemore, Johnny Page, Jeremiah Dobo, Jim, JM Rhapsody, Josh Yelton, Chaotic Monkey, Kevin McCracken, Quaz, Larkins Loyal Lemming, Lendon Vandersand, Linda Hull, Lonnie Zone, Lucas Raymond, Mitch Minier, Ophelia, As Good As It Gets, Reed, Ryan M, Sandy P, Right Hand D, Steven, That Other Guy, The Hodag, The Hat 123, Trent Thorough, Wings Fan in St. Louis, Scott, and your second favorite patron. Thank you all so very much. Talk to you midweek.
Thanks for tuning in to the Winged Wheel Podcast. Be sure to visit wingedwheelpodcast.com, where you'll find links to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll also find ways to support the show, like Patreon, official podcast merchandise, and more. And don't forget to follow us on X at Winged Wheel Pod, at Ryan Hanna, WWP, at Brad Crisco, and at Hockeytown Evan, as well as Winged Wheel Podcast on Instagram.